Shocking story unfolding in Miami this weekend.
The man continued his attack after being shot.
He attacked me. He just ripped me to ribbons. He chewed at my face. He plucked out my eyes. He must have been souped up on something.
This is the voice of a man who's been attacked unprovoked. He loses his eyes, eyebrows, nose, lips, and cheeks, and 80% of his face is completely missing. It's been eaten by a crazed madman on the side of the MacArthur Causeway, and they assume that he was having a bad trip due to a new drug on the market that turns people into living zombies. However, when the test results come back, the toxicology report stuns everyone involved. This is the Miami Face Eater mystery.
What?
February 4th, 1981. Rudy Eugene is born at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, Florida. He's the first of 3 boys to Haitian immigrant parents who divorced shortly after the birth of their 3rd son. The family lives in North Miami Beach and is extremely religious. Rudy routinely attends services with them every Sunday, dressed in a freshly pressed shirt, nice slacks, and black dress shoes, armed with the holy book in hand. By the time he's in high school, Rudy stops going to church but still carries his Bible in hand and quotes scripture. His friends actually give him the nickname Preacher because the kid prays that much. But when he hits 9th grade, Rudy's world is shaken to its core. He finds out that the man he calls dad isn't actually his biological father. He then learns that the dad he'd never known is in fact dead, which stirs up a wide range of emotions. The once spiritual kid is now far from sainthood and has several brushes in with the law. In 1997, when he's just 16 years old, he's taken into custody on a battery charge. Over the next 5 years, he's arrested 7 more times, but most of these are minor drug charges, selling and smoking marijuana. Despite his run-ins with the law, the kid shows promise on the football field. He plays defensive end at North Miami High School, where he graduates in the year 2000. His friends and classmates say that he's a nice guy, funny, friendly, with a warm smile. Though after getting his diploma, he has no clear-cut path for his career, which leads the former football player down a dark path. In February 2004, Rudy becomes the first.
This nigga is a. I just want to say, I don't know this guy, but this man is a great storyteller, bro. Props to you, Jack Neal. Like, hold on, bro. I'm just gonna subscribe for the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Person ever tasered by the North Miami Police Department. He earns this dubious honor after
first
pushing
person ever
and laying
tasered?
hands on his mother. She manages to call police, telling them that she fears for her life because her son just said, quote, "I'll put a gun to your head and kill you." And when officers arrive at the home, Rudy is hostile and out of control. They're forced to utilize their tasers not just once, but 3 times before Rudy is finally subdued and placed on the ground in handcuffs.
3 times?
Mom refuses to file charges against her son, who pleads guilty to resisting arrest in order to avoid time behind bars. After being sentenced to probation, his life appears to be going in the right direction. A year later, Rudy, who's now 24 years old, marries a girl named Jenny Ductant. They'd reconnected after meeting back in high school, but unfortunately the relationship is short-lived. They divorced 3 years later in 2007, with his ex-wife citing domestic violence as the reason for their split. With no wife, no home, and no career, Rudy's forced to work several menial jobs in order to make ends meet. He sells CDs, works at the local McDonald's, and details cars at a local dealership. Though he does have dreams past this and tells his friends that one day he's going to open up his own car washing business. And despite his rough circumstances, Rudy still hasn't lost his faith. He continues his daily prayer, asking God for strength and guidance. He doesn't want his criminal record and failed marriage to affect him forever, and tells friends that he is going to get his life together. Instead, it will be ripped to shreds after a chance encounter with a stranger. May 26th, 2012. It's Memorial Day weekend, and Ronald Poppo is once again asleep on the side of the MacArthur Causeway. He's tucked away under a shady spot on the bridge, trying to shield himself from the Miami sun. He's been living on the streets of South Florida for 3 decades now, which is a stark contrast to his privileged childhood. Ronald is born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and his dad works in the shipping business.
Okay.
As a kid, he attends the prestigious Manhattan Stuyvesant High School, where he's a member of the Latin Club and works in the guidance counselor's office. After graduation, Ronald enrolls in a nearby city college, but abruptly drops out in 1966. Records show he'd become homeless 10 years later, drinking heavily and racking up multiple arrests.
God
He
damn it,
has
nigga.
at least 24 of them, all for trespassing, drinking in public, or sleeping in places where he's not supposed to. He also has a handful of felonies for burglary, assault, and resisting arrest. In the 80s, Ronald spends some time in New Orleans, becoming a roadie for a band called Scum, who he ultimately follows out to Miami. After he's there for 2 years, the group breaks up, going their separate ways, but Ronald decides to stay behind. And although homeless advocates routinely try to place him in housing, he refuses, saying that he'd rather just sleep and hang out underneath the causeway. Rudy Eugene's spending the Saturday partying at Miami's Urban Beach Week. After he's finished, he gets in his car to drive back home, but it won't start. He then calls his girlfriend and says it's gonna take a while for him to get back home, and waits by his car for about an hour. Eventually though, he ditches his vehicle and starts walking down the MacArthur Causeway. During the 3-mile trek across the bridge, the 31-year-old for some reason starts taking off his clothes. First, he removes his shirt, then his pants, and finally his underwear before tossing them on the side of the road.
What?
Several people then report seeing him swinging from lampposts, looking almost like Tarzan. As he
What?
approaches a shady area underneath some train tracks, Rudy, who's now completely naked, spots Ronald Poppo sleeping on the sidewalk.
What?
The elderly man has no idea that he is in the wrong place at the wrong time, and his life is about to permanently change in a
What?
horrific way. It's 1:55 p.m. when Rudy becomes enraged and starts yelling at Ronald. He accuses him of stealing his Bible and out of nowhere starts punching him repeatedly. Rudy rips off Ronald's tattered clothes, strips him of his pants, and wrestles him into a chokehold. Ronald cannot escape.
What?
And that's when he feels the sensation of teeth sinking into his skin as Rudy bites at the poor man's face. Cameras capture 4 cyclists as they slow down and just observe as the 65-year-old man screams for help. They then go about their day as Ronald's eyes are plucked from his face and his head is slammed into the cement.
What?
Countless cars pass by the scene, and a few of those who witnessed the travesty call 911.
I'm a bus driver. I passed by and I saw what was happening. He's gonna kill that man. I saw him shoot. Okay.
18 grueling minutes later,
What is going
help
on?
finally arrives, and footage shows Miami police officer Jose Ramirez.
So I'm
getting
saying
out of his
nobody-
car and
these fucking
casually
bikers just
walking
stopped
up
and
to the
left?
2 men fighting. The graphic scene is obscured by concrete pillars, but you can see the officer do a double take as he's unable to process what he's just seen. Rudy then straddles Ronald as he's pinned to the ground, surrounded by pieces of his own face. Officer Ramirez pulls out his weapon and points it at Rudy, who appears to be chewing on something. He yells for him to stop, but the crazed man growls back like a wild animal. Ramirez aims and fires his weapon, but Rudy still is consuming his meal.
Once the officer discharged his firearm and shot the subject growled at him and continued to maul the victim. If a
Nigga.
bullet isn't going to stop the subject, a taser or an asp or any other piece of equipment that we carry would have been able to stop him.
The carnage finally ends after Officer Ramirez fires several more shots, 5 in total, killing Rudy Eugene. It's 2:13 p.m., almost 20 full minutes after the disturbing...
How many shots did he fire? What did he say? How many shots?
Almost killing Rudy. The carnage finally ends after Officer Ramirez fires several more shots, 5 in total, killing Rudy Eugene. It's
Nigga.
2:13 p.m., almost 20 full minutes after the disturbing encounter had begun. A fleet of
This nigga said this ain't even funny. No, it's not, nigga. Of course it's not.
officers arrive on scene along with a team of paramedics who are already tending to Ronald's injuries. Amazingly, he's still conscious, and you can see as he tries to sit up and move his arms even after the brutal attack.
Bruh.
Ronald's then put
What
on
the
a
hell
stretcher
happened?
and
What
sent
kind of
off in
drug
an
was this nigga
ambulance
on?
in critical condition. At the hospital, doctors hold a news conference where they tell a scrum of reporters that everything above the man's beard is mangled or missing. Graphic photos show 80% of Ronald's face is affected. Everything chewed off down to his goatee. He no longer has
This nigga you chewed off this nigga's mustache? Imagine a nigga chewing off, oh my God, nigga. You chewed off this nigga's mustache and his beard? God damn, nigga.
a nose, mouth, or eyes, and his forehead is just bone. Ronald then undergoes his first of many surgeries in an attempt to reconstruct what's left of his face. The photos and videos of the aftermath are emotional, but I'll get to that in a bit. The grisly attack makes headlines worldwide, and Rudy is dubbed as the Miami Zombie. Investigators tell reporters that although the reasons for the attack are unclear, they have suspicions that Rudy had been under the influence of bath salts. And no, these aren't the kind of salts that you soak in a bathtub, but they do look quite similar. These synthetic drugs trigger violent behavior, vivid hallucinations, and are said to give its users superhuman strength. At the time, the chemical cocktail is easily accessible in places like smoke shops or your local convenience store. It causes your body to heat up, making it feel like your organs are on fire.
Your local convenience
store?
store?
Detectives say is why Rudy had taken off his clothes as he crossed the bridge. Though it comes as a shock when the toxicology report comes back saying there are no signs of bath salts in Rudy's body. He's deemed clean except for the presence of marijuana in his system. Also, a number of undigested pills are found in his stomach, but they're never identified, which honestly is pretty strange. Still though, there are no illegal or legal narcotics found. So what would cause a seemingly ordinary man to do something
to just
so
go crazy
extreme? Well, there's a few theories floating around.
It was
the
God!
Which I think is the most likely. Firstly, some believe that Rudy had been under an evil curse. See, he happened to come from a line of Haitians who practice voodoo, and they assume he'd been cast under a dark spell. Close friends, on the other hand, say that Rudy had struggled with depression, and it was his mental illness that caused him to snap. Others in his community say that the marijuana he'd been smoking had been laced with something, causing him to behave cannibalistically. I agree with this one the most, but to add on, he walked 3 miles in the blistering Miami sun. It was nearly 90 degrees that day, so he could have been suffering from some sort of heat stroke. Thankfully, charitable organizations raise over $100,000 for Ronald, who's now living indefinitely in a medical facility. And although he's completely blind, he's since learned to play the guitar and is able to take care of himself. He remains upbeat and positive. Grateful to be alive.
I thank the outpouring of people in the community. I will always be grateful for that.
Damn. That was fucking fantastic. Who is this guy?